You're listening to the OUTLoud podcast, hosted by Dakota Outright. Welcome to our first show. My name is Jen.
I'm Erin.
I'm Carrie.
And we're Dakota Outright board members. And Dakota Outright is a volunteer nonprofit organization that works to improve the lives of LGBTQ people in central and western North Dakota.
Our main areas of work include providing resources and education, working towards equality, and ultimately creating safe spaces for support and celebration for the LGBT plus community.
Before we launch into our first show, a note on language. There are a vast number of ways in which people identify, and we do our best to honor the variety of experiences within the LGBTQ community. You're going to hear us use the terms LGBT, LGBTQ, and LGBT+ on this show, which is our way of embracing a wide range of identities that reflect different spaces within the context of sexual orientation and the gender spectrum. Language is an objective and ever-evolving thing, and we're going to make time to talk about different perspectives on language within the LGBT+ community. For more resources right now, go to dakotaoutright.org. So, Erin, why are we doing this podcast?
Great question. We're doing this podcast because we want to create a space to share news, information, and stories about LGBT plus people in North Dakota. We want to increase visibility and awareness of the issues that are facing our lives, and to build connections with the community across the state of North Dakota. Carrie, we have this wonderful podcast. Where can we hear it?
There will be several places it will be posted. We're going to post it on the URL radio.com. Also on Bismarck State College's student-run radio, The Mix, which is bscmysticmedia.com. Also on our website, which is dakotaoutright.org. And on our YouTube channel, Dakota Outright is the username. And please remember to share it with your networks, friends, and neighbors. So, Erin, now that they know that, how can they get involved with us?
Wonderful. As we're learning more about, or as you're learning more about Dakota Outright, you might be looking for ways to become more involved. And we have several ways to do that. The first is attending our board meetings. We have those every second Tuesday of the month. They're held at 6 p.m. at the Consensus Council. And those are open to the public, so you can just come and sit, listen, and participate as you will. We have several committees, the Events Committee, Outreach, Advocacy, and Pride. And we're always looking for community members to come and join those committees. We have volunteer opportunities that pop up throughout the year. You can visit our website to find those. We also have open board positions for the individual who wants to give more. You've got some talents to share, and maybe you want a new leadership role. We're just looking for people that want to give a little extra. So to find out more about how to get involved with Dakota Outright, you can visit our website, dakotaoutright.org. You can email us at contactus@dakotaoutright.org, or visit us on Facebook at facebook.com/Dakota Outright.
Our next segment focuses on supporting LGBT+ youth. Jason Martozke is a counselor at Century High School. As president-elect of the North Dakota Counselors Association, he's been busy planning their upcoming conference on February 20th through 22nd. Thanks for being with us, Jason. We want to talk about your conference, but first we want to talk a little bit about LGBT+ youth. So what is the climate currently like in high schools or at your school for LGBT kids?
Right now, as far as the climate goes, it's almost a growing openness right now. There's a lot of headway kind of coming through both at the national level and even a little bit by the state level. One of the high schools last year did create a GSA, Gay Straight Alliance, and currently at our high school we have started the process as well, having a couple meetings and a good response so far.
Well, good, that's really encouraging. So aside from the GSAs, what do you see students doing to cope with the challenges of being LGBT?
Right now, I mean, as far as the age that we live in, having access to resources from all over the United States through social media, I think is a big one. Along with that, just finding their little niches within the school, within the different groups, clubs, classes. We have a classroom right now that really kind of seem to have congregated in quite a bit with a really supportive teacher that helps them with that and provides that safe zone for them a little bit. And then also through different programs at the schools with tolerance programs such as we have like a zone, Patriot Zone, that we started, and now is morphed into kind of sources of strength, which Bismarck High and Century have started, which is really huge as far as creating a welcome and warming environment for the students.
Yeah, it sounds like there's a lot more options to create kind of that support network that's so important. So moving to your conference, the NDCA annual conference features keynote speaker Dr. Vinny Pompey, and he's director of the Youth Wellbeing Project at the Human Rights Campaign Foundation. So what will he be talking about?
He's going to be doing 2 sessions. Actually, he's going to be doing a keynote session, which is going to kick off our conference on Friday at noon, where he's really going to touch on a lot of different topics, just from the different variations within the LGBT community, resources available, and what individuals can do within the settings to help promote self-inclusion, even going as far as LGBT language within the curriculum as well.
And I know you've mentioned to me that this is the first time that LGBT topics have been included at this conference. So why do you think that is, and why was it so important for you as an organizer to include this?
Well, I've been going to the conference for about 8 years now, and I don't recall having a session, on these issues. And I just, with my experience over the last couple of years, having former classmates who have left the state, kind of coming out, working in the schools and seeing a lot of different groups being recognized and supported, wanted to make sure that we were adequately equipped to help all students. A few years ago, the district did send me to a conference that Vinny Pompey put on in San Diego, Time to Thrive, and it was just eye-opening. I mean, the amount of resources that I brought back were like gold for all the counselors in the district. And so I saw a real need. And so when I started looking at planning the conference, I chose the theme of putting the pieces together, enhancing your counseling toolbox. And one of those pieces I felt that was maybe underrepresented was LGBT issues and some of the training that went along with that.
Very cool. So I know Dr. Pompey is not the only speaker who's going to talk about LGBT issues. You're also having Corey Schneider, and he's a marriage and family therapist. And what will he be talking about?
Again, he goes into more detail with some on a different twist there a little bit. Vinny Pompey deals a lot more with the school aspect of things, even as far as bringing a panel in of current students and past students to speak. And then Corey Schneider really goes into depth a little bit more, even reaching out to parents, working with their students that maybe are struggling with their sexual identity a little bit as well, helping them process through it and to feel comfortable kind of out in the environment. And I'm really kind of happy he put in a breakout session to present. I met him at that conference in San Diego, and so he put in a session, and then I went to Dakota outright to see if they'd want to make use of him, and because he said he'd be willing to do as much as he possibly can, and they did. They're bringing them in, and they have several different options besides the conference.
Yeah, and to expand more on those options, on Thursday, February 20th at noon, Corey will be at Bismarck State College, and he's doing a workshop on interventions for LGBTQ bullied youth. And then that evening, he's going to be still at the Bismarck State College, and he's going to do a workshop about understanding your LGBTQ child. And then Friday at 1 p.m., he's going to be at United Tribes Technical College, repeating that interventions for LGBTQ bullied youth workshop. And Jason, can people still register for your conference, or who's the ideal audience? Who are you trying to reach?
Our conference, really, we have members and non-members alike, register for the conference. Our target audience are basically being the North Dakota Counseling Association, obviously encompasses, the community counselor, the addictions counselor, the school counselor as well. But we've had social workers, we've had, basically anyone can register. If you go to ndcounseling.org website, there is a link to our counseling page and to the registration, so you can register online as well. We do accept walk-ins as well. Obviously, on-site cost is a little bit more to register for that at this time. But definitely, we have great sessions. We have, like I said, the keynote starting at noon on Friday, and that's going to be Vinny Pompey. And then Vinny Pompey's breakout session will be on Saturday at 10 o'clock. As well. And then Corey Schneider's breakout is going to be Saturday afternoon.
Okay. Okay, great. And also, Dakota Outright's going to have a booth there, so people are encouraged to stop by and say hi. But I'd like to thank you, Jason, for coming in, and we'd love to have you back to talk more about updates at the school.
I'd be happy to.
Everything you're doing. All right, thank you.
Yep.
The next segment talks about Senate Bill 2279, which was brought before the Senate floor on February 17th after this show was recorded. Despite a 4-2 do not pass recommendation from the Judiciary Committee, the Senate voted 25-22 in favor of the bill. The information and request to contact your legislators in this interview with Representative Josh Boschee now applies to rally and secure support in the House. For updates, like Dakota Outright on Facebook.
On Monday, February 2nd, the North Dakota State Senate heard testimony on Senate Bill 2279 regarding discrimination on the basis of sexual orientation and gender identity. The room was small, but tightly packed with opposition. However, supporters, both members of the LGBT plus community and our allies, outnumbered those who did not support equal fare and treatment for all North Dakotans. Today, we have Representative Josh Boschee with us to talk about this bill. Thanks for coming in, Josh.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Erin.
Awesome. So my first question for you is, why is this bill, Senate Bill 2279, so important?
Well, I think it's important to LGBT people in North Dakota and our families because what it does is it amends the North Dakota Human Rights Act and the North Dakota Fair Housing Act to include sexual orientation and gender identity as protected in employment or housing discrimination. We know that people live in fear of losing their job or being kicked out of their apartment, so this would allow them to lose that fear and be more honest with their neighbors and their coworkers with who they are.
Sure, absolutely. So can you tell me a little bit about why people are opposed to this bill?
Well, there's a variety of reasons folks stated their opposition. I think a lot of times people have a fear that by passing a law like this, they have to affirm LGBT people or support who we are, and that may not be in line with their beliefs or their religion. And this bill actually doesn't do that at all. The practicality of this bill is when somebody thinks that they've been discriminated, if this bill were to pass, if someone thinks they've been discriminated based on their sexual orientation or gender identity, they can call the Department of Labor and say, hey, this happened to me, can you help me out? Right now, today, that's not the case.
Exactly. So where is the bill sitting currently? What's going on with it?
Well, it was heard, as you said, in the Senate Judiciary Committee, and they worked on a lot of different bills this week. So it's held over till Monday the 16th, February 16th, in which they're going to discuss it and hopefully pass it out in its current form.
Sure, great. So since this is such an important thing for LGBTQ plus folks in North Dakota, what can allies or members of the community do to make sure that this passes?
Well, I think it's really important that LGBT North Dakotans, their family, their friends, the people they worship with, reach out to their senators and share why this is important to them. Many times when visiting with elected leaders, they say, well, I don't hear from LGBT people, or I don't know an LGBT person. And by us sharing our voices and reaching out, that changes the story. And here in North Dakota, politics is really local. And so when people find out that there's a mother of a gay son or a transgender person living in their community, it changes their perspective a little bit when they understand that this impacts people back home.
Exactly. So if I want to contact my senator, how do I go about finding their contact information?
Well, the best way would be to go to the North Dakota Legislature website. And so for easiest form, I would just say Google North Dakota Legislature. Sure. And right there on the homepage, it's going to say something like, who's my senator, or find my senator. You just click on that, enter your address, and it'll throw up your 3 representatives, and then you'll be able to have their contact information.
Sounds good. Is there anything in particular that they should mention in the email to help share the story?
I think it's important for them to recognize that right now, LGBT people don't have an avenue for protection. And so we're just asking that if something does happen, that we can go to the Department of Labor and say, hey, this happened, can you help me out?
Perfect. Thank you so much for coming and sharing this information with us today.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate the podcast.
Yeah, thanks. Join Hostess with the Mostest, Janessa J. Champagne, and the Dakota Divas in Drag for a totally 80s drag show on Saturday, March 21st.
Doors open at the Radisson at 7:30, and we're now accepting entries for the amateur drag contest. Go ahead and register at dakotaoutright.org.
We'll see you there in your 80s wear.
The OUTLoud podcast, hosted by Dakota Outright, is looking for sponsors so we can continue to provide quality LGBTQ-focused news, information, and content to our supporters. Sponsors will receive our public gratitude, and advertising space is also available. Go to dakotaoutright.org/podcast for more info.
Well, that wraps up our first show. We'd like to thank our guests, CHS Counselor Jason Martozke and Representative Josh Boschee, for joining us today.
Join us next month when marriage and family therapist Corey Schneider will share information about how parents can be supportive of their LGBT plus identified youth. To learn more about Corey, you can visit his website at affirmativefoundations.com. Coming up next is our closing segment, Strength Through Stories. Thanks for listening.
Storytelling builds human connection. Long throughout history, stories have been the way that knowledge has been shared, wisdom imparted, and great truths revealed to both listeners and storytellers themselves. Strength through stories is our way to connect with others about the human experience. We hope these stories will let others know they are not alone, that things do get better, and that change is possible. Our first storyteller is Kevin R. Tengesdal from Bismarck, whose story is titled, How I Remain Passionate.
How do I remain passionate with faith, living in conservative North Dakota being a gay Christian? Well, it certainly did not happen overnight. In a setting where the gay community seemingly would want me to ignore God, and the faith community is seemingly silent, why give a care? I say, why not? I purpose to show up when I'm able. Yes, life is busy for everyone, but how will people know there is a gay community when there aren't more than just a few visible gay individuals? I also use the power of social media to keep on promoting positive and affirming stories, either of allies taking a stand, gay people advancing causes, or faith communities reaching out. And I also defend my faith in God. I want to reassure gay friends and straight allies that God does not have anything against us for being who He made us to be. Yes, certainly it can be a tough journey, but I don't remember anywhere that I was promised a tiptoe through the tulips life. Micah 6:8 in the Bible, it simply states, He has told you, O man, what is good. What does the Lord require of you but to do justice, to love kindness, and to walk humbly with your God? For me, I choose to take a stand for just and right causes, promoting the fact of God's grace, believing in the good of straight allies, and continuing to hope for a day in North Dakota where we all will be treated with fair treatment and not fear treatment. For me, I choose to find a circle, a pack, a chosen family to encourage one another along this trail. It's all about community. Community. The addled boy upon the corner looked to the right, looked to the left, looked to the skies, wondered freely, what am I seeking? Community. The cautious dude inside his evolution discovered his sexual parts, discovered his sexual identity, discovered his sexual orientation, wondered robustly, what am I wanting? Community. The escaping fellow among the global traveled toward new education, traveled toward new horizons, traveled toward new shores, wondered inquisitively, what am I pursuing? Community. The growing human within his grounding embraced the spiritual Messiah, embraced the spiritual path, embraced the spiritual hope, wondered earnestly, what am I following? Community. The fraught entity between his developing wrestled with his identities, wrestled with the remedies, wrestled with the knowledge, wondered never-ending, what am I undertaking? Community. The discharged chap from the burden accepted the grace of his Father above, accepted the grace of his identities within, accepted the grace of his future forward, wondered deeply, what am I promoting? Community. The adept boy outside the closet continues to look to, continues to discover, continues to travel toward, continues to embrace, continues to wrestle with, continues to accept. Community. Seeks commonality freely, wants affiliation robustly, pursues comradeship inquisitively, follows alliance earnestly, undertakes centralizing never ending, promotes association deeply. Community.
Everyone has a story to share, and sharing stories gives us strength. The OUTLoud podcast is looking for more submissions for our Strength Through Stories series. Could it be yours? Email contact us at dakotaoutright.org to participate.